Now, back live with Alan Jones and Graham Richardson.
Yeah, well, I won't say welcome back because you've been here all the time. But as I said to Graham before the break, I was recently broadcasting from Mount Isa. And when I spoke to the police up there and I spoke to a lot of people, all they wanted to talk about, I might add, was welfare and foreign ownership. Now, where do you start with a welfare bill of $150 billion, increasing by 6.1% this year? In 1949, you know, the government spent £79, 1 shilling and 8 pence per head of population, equal to about $4,000 in today's money per head of population. Now the Commonwealth spends more than $17,000 per man, woman and child on welfare. Half of Australia's 12.2 million families and individual income earners contribute nothing to the public purse because any tax paid is offset by welfare churn. That's half of all families and individual income earners pay no tax because they get it back in welfare. Don't we have to start by saying that welfare is supposed to be a safety net? It's not supposed to create dependency and, through that, misery. It's not meant to be an income stream. The former Australian of the Year, Galleroy Unipingo, got it right when he said that welfare kills, such is its all-pervasive power to suck the life out of individuals. Now, if that's true of Indigenous communities, it's obviously true of everyone else. The welfare bill costs taxpayers almost $5,000 a second. 411 million a day, and it'll hit 171 billion by 2017-18. Now, when we talk about social security, 150 billion now, these are payments to the aged, to the disabled, to parents, to the unemployed, and to Indigenous Australians. It's 35% of all federal spending. Social security, $6,500 for every person in Australia, 25% higher than is spent by the New Zealand government. The value of outstanding student loans is currently $30.6 billion. It'll rise to more than $52 billion by 2018. How do you claw that money back? Of the 10.1 million taxpayers, everything paid by 8 million of them just pays the welfare bill. Well, were the policemen wrong when they told me in Mount Isa, and it tends to be loose speaking, everyone's on welfare? What he meant by that was the people he has to round up on Friday night and Saturday nights are on welfare. And it was there in Mount Isa that my attention, as I said to Graham, was drawn to this cashless welfare debit card. Now, I don't know much about this, but I have to confess, at the time, I didn't know much at all. The bloke in charge is Tudge, quite a smart fellow, to be honest. He's the federal member for the Victorian seat of Aston. He was elected to the federal parliament in 2010, formerly a senior advisor to Brendan Nelson and Alexander Downer, but he also spent several years as the deputy director of Noel Pearson's Cape York Institute, where he oversaw the design of the welfare reform program, which is now being implemented. He has a Bachelor of Laws with honours and a Bachelor of Arts from Melbourne University and an MBA from Harvard University, but his first jobs included apple and potato picking, factory labouring, bar work, and he was a sales assistant at Myer in Dandenong. He is the Parliamentary Secretary of the Prime Minister, but apparently the technology exists to block purchases and cash withdrawals with a welfare card, and that is what police were saying to me in Mount Isa. Every Australian on welfare should have the card. Well, do they? And as I said to Graham, my understanding is this legislation is being blocked in the Senate. So, Alan Tudge, thank you for your time. Now, tell us where we are on this.
Well, we're introducing legislation tomorrow morning, Alan, to authorise a trial in up to 3 locations across Australia, which will introduce this cashless debit card. Now, the concept is pretty simple. At the moment, as you probably know, we allocate welfare into every fortnight into people's savings account, which they can access in cash. Instead of doing that, we're going to put 80% of all their welfare payments into an account which is only accessible via a Visa or EFTPOS debit card, which will work everywhere. You can purchase whatever you like, but simply won't work at the bottle shops, won't work at the gambling stores, and you won't be able to take out cash with it, so you can't purchase illicit substances. And we think this could have a dramatic impact on some of the welfare-fuelled alcohol and drug and gambling abuse, which is rife in some communities.
So you're saying that the banks and outfits like Coles and Woolworths and IGA and those outfits have the technology to so use such a card?
That's right. So I've been working with the financial services institutions for 6 months or so now, and we'll be designing a card which the technology is relatively straightforward. It will simply block every liquor store and every gambling house from the operability of this card right across the country. But otherwise the card will work everywhere. And so the aim is to give, if you like, as much freedom for welfare recipients to spend their money as they like, with the exception of those prohibited products. And we think this is absolutely worth trialling.
But what if Graham's got a general store?
Next year.
What if Graham's got a general store at Dubbo? And because it's Dubbo, take a smaller community than Dubbo, and you sell everything in one store, don't you? And so
Coonabarabran or something like that.
Coonabarabran or somewhere. And he's going to sell, you know, liquor and wine and whatever. How's he going to deal with this?
Yeah, different states have different liquor licensing laws. In a state like South Australia or Western Australia, where we're likely to start our trial sites, you can only sell liquor in dedicated liquor outlets. So it's more straightforward there. You can just simply exclude those stores from the operability. Where there is where there's a store which might sell liquor and might also sell food or other goods, typically they'll sometimes have two FPOS machines, or we'll encourage them to do so. One FPOS machine will work for liquor, the other one, won't work if it's selling liquor. The other FPOS machine may indeed work if it's selling groceries and other products.
What's this called? What's this thing called? Is it called a healthy welfare card, is it? Because Australians don't know anything about this. Is it called a healthy welfare card?
Well, yeah, this actually came about from Andrew Forrest. It was his recommendation about 12 months or so ago now, and he recommended this apply across Australia. Now, we're not suggesting it apply across Australia, but rather we've decided let's at least trial this thing in a handful of locations where there is high welfare-fuelled alcohol and drug abuse. And so the first site which we're going to do this in is in the Ceduna region in South Australia. And we've had a lot of consultation, in fact even co-design with the community leaders down there, so that they're willing and wanting to participate in this trial. The name of it, we're going to be calling it the Centrelink debit card, and effectively that's what it is. All your Centrelink payments will go onto that card.
Can I ask
it will be a debit card similar to every other debit card.
Can I ask you two questions? It seems to me that the first, Alan made this point at the start. He actually raised this with me last Thursday morning when we were doing a promo for this show, and I had never heard of it. I had never heard of it. Now, every morning I buy the 4 papers in Sydney, I sit in a coffee shop, I have a flat white and a toasted ham and cheese, and I read those 4 papers. I spend an hour, hour and a half every day doing that. How is it that I miss this?
I don't know, Richo, because it's been the front page of some of the daily tabloids, and it also was the front page of the Australian newspaper, I think, just last week.
And I think Alan's right. Graham's right, Alan. I mean, you're bad sellers, aren't you, of such an idea? I mean, I don't think people even understand, do they? What you're saying is all welfare payments will go into, if I was on welfare, into Alan Jones's account. All the welfare money. So I don't touch that. And with it I get, what are you going to call the card?
The Centrelink debit card.
Centrelink debit card. God, that doesn't tell us much. It's complicated. A Centrelink debit card. I like the healthy credit card, really. And so then I got the card. So I can go out and buy what I want, but you can guarantee that at Ceduna, in the trial, you won't be able to buy grog and you won't be able to get... Now, can't I get cash out?
You won't be able to gamble with it.
Only 20%.
And you won't be able to get cash with it. So only 20%. So 80% of your payments will be locked into this card.
But I will be able to get cash. I will be able to get cash.
You'll be able to get 20% cash.
Right.
At the moment,
it's 80
all
bucks.
of your welfare payments every fortnight just go into your cash account, right? That's how it works. We just drop the money into a person's cash account. Now, when this trial begins, and it will be early next year, 80% of your welfare payments will go into a new account which is only accessible via this debit card. So everywhere you go, you'll be swiping your card, putting in a PIN number. If you want to purchase your groceries, want to take a taxi, you want to do whatever you like. And you'll still be able to access 20% of your payments through your ordinary savings account.
Can I ask you, though, what arguments were used against this? Now, it's stalled in the Senate. What were those who are voting against it saying? Because
well, I'm
trying to work out what's wrong with it.
It hasn't got there, I think I got that wrong.
Well, this has been...
But there's talk that they won't support
so we're introducing it into the... We're introducing this into the House of Representatives tomorrow. I've been having ongoing engagement with the crossbenchers and indeed the Labor Party for the last few months.
And do you have the numbers?
Aim of getting their support. Now, I've had very constructive conversations with them, and I hope that they will not only listen to me, but also listen to those community leaders in Ceduna who want this trial to occur. Now, time will tell. I'm very hopeful, but there's some people, of course, who just for, which includes the Greens, who for ideological reasons just say that people should be able to spend their welfare on whatever they like, even if they're spending every single dollar on the pokies on day one and there's no food on the table for the kids, or even if they're spending half their welfare payments on alcohol and it's ending up with
the Greens don't count.
Significant violence towards women.
Alan, let's not be pussyfooting around. The Greens don't count if Labor back the legislation. So if the Labor Party back the legislation, are they?
To be honest, Labor haven't declared their hand yet. I've had constructive discussions with them. They were initially, to be honest, they were sceptical about the position, but I've engaged with them. I think they've been listening to the community leaders who I've been co-designing this trial with, who are actively calling and publicly calling for the legislation to go through the House. And I'm hoping they will listen to those community leaders and allow this trial to occur.
Why would we restrict it to Indigenous communities? Now, I can recall some years ago...
I don't think that is.
Without
No,
naming...
it's not.
No, it's not.
Well, can I just...
No, it's not. It's not, Alan. I want to make this... sorry, Richo. I want to make this very clear. This is not an Indigenous card.
No.
And in the Ceduna region, about two-thirds of people will be two-thirds of people who are captured will be Indigenous, but the other third will be non-Indigenous. Everybody who's on an income support payment, i.e. they're on New Start, they're on the disability support pension, they're on a carer's payments and the like, will be captured by this trial.
Excellent. So you're saying in the whole of Australia, if I'm unemployed and I'm on a benefit, what about pensions?
Well,
all
that's
of those?
down the track. That's down the track. See,
are they all covered?
No, because it's just a trial,
So
isn't it? You've profiled Ceduna, haven't you? You've profiled Ceduna. And the reason you've started there, just explain why you've started there.
Sure. We right at the get-go, when we announced that we wanted to proceed on a trial basis, we said that we would choose locations which satisfied two criteria. One being where there is significant welfare-fuelled alcohol and drug abuse, and Ceduna certainly satisfies that. Their hospitalisation rates from assaults is 68 times the national average, most of which is related to alcohol. And the second criteria was for there to be at least an openness, if not a willingness, from the community leaders in the trial location to participate in the trial. And Ceduna also has got terrific leaders there who have wanted to step up, work very closely with us in co-designing this trial. And they're absolutely locked in behind this now, and to the extent that we'll be now implementing this together with the start date being early next year.
What do you mean when you talk about data mining technology, which will monitor the use of the card and detect any unusual sales or purchases? Now, that suggests to me that you're not confident this is foolproof.
Listen, people, Alan, will always try to get around things like this, and inevitably some will succeed. However, we're going to put in place some mechanisms to try to prevent as much as possible of illegal practices occurring. Now, one of those mechanisms will be basically what the credit card companies do now, where they'll be able to track at the macro level some of the expenditure patterns. And if they see an unusual expenditure occur, for example, if your typical taxi is ordinarily charged on average $50 per fare, and if all of a sudden there's a lot of $200 or $300 fares being charged, then a red light will flash, and it will perhaps indicate that that taxi driver has been charging people a couple $100, taking that money and maybe giving $100 back in cash to that person. So we'll be able to pick up that type of behaviour through this data tracking.
Can I ask you, if I'm living in Ceduna, and I know I'm under this sort of scrutiny, what's to stop me driving 100 k's down the road or something and doing it somewhere else? Does this technology during the trial hold at other places?
It will work across the entire country, Richo, so that card will travel with you. It will be a basic a Visa card, for example, or an EFTPOS card, which means it'll work in every single location across the country, but it will not work at any liquor store in the country either. We will switch off what's called the merchant category code, which relates to liquor stores. So you might drive into Adelaide, none of the pubs or the bottle shops are going to work with your card, but the supermarket will.
So just coming, that's a very good point that Graham's made. So you're saying that even though the trial is at Ceduna, the technology will be nationally operative. So if someone left Ceduna and went to Brisbane, the 80-20 split would still apply.
It would still apply, and there won't be a bottle shop in Brisbane that will work on that card.
So just coming back to the 80-20, so what you'll do will be to take whatever the welfare payment they're entitled to, you'll put 80%, 80% of it into this particular account where the card works, and 20% goes into their bank account. So the 20% they've got their own
exactly
normal
right.
access to, and the 80% goes in where you can only access it with this, whatever it's called,
with this
Centrelink
debit card.
Debit card.
Debit card, that's right. So
and even though the trials at
Ceduna,
that debit card will secure the same response anywhere in Australia.
Anywhere in the country, that card will travel with you. If you need to use it to purchase a hotel for a room for the night, it will work.
But not every retailer is Woolworths and Coles.
It will work.
Not every retailer is Woolworths and Coles.
But see, what's going to happen with the technology, Alan, is that every single retailer in the country will be switched onto the card, similar to what your Visa card is at the moment. Most people who are watching this have probably got a Visa card or a MasterCard. It works everywhere.
Right.
But we will switch off from the operation of that card, the operability of that card, every liquor store in the country and every gambling house in the country. And you can do that from the technology perspective, because whenever a retailer signs on to being a Visa card operator, it has to give what's called its merchant category code. If you're a liquor store, it's a liquor store merchant category code. We will switch that off. So no liquor store in the country will work on this Centrelink debit card.
So this is a 12-month trial at Ceduna in South Australia. Is there anywhere else?
Yeah, so we're in advanced discussions with the leadership in the East Kimberley, but we've still got a bit more work to do before we can determine whether or not we'll proceed there. But it's likely to be the case, and then we'll have the capacity for a third location as well, Alan.
What do you mean when you said that aged pensioners and workers may volunteer to opt in?
So the people who will be covered by the trial will be every working age person on an income support payment. And if they're on a New Start
65 and under
disability support payment, 65 and under, between 17 and 65. For aged pensioners, you won't be automatically captured, but you will have the option to volunteer into the program, and many people will. There'll be some workers who may also want to have their salaries paid into this account, and this is particularly the case, Alan, in Indigenous communities where there's this thing called humbugging, where it's a cultural practice where people will often be, family members will be asked for money from others, and there's almost a cultural requirement to hand over money. And if you're the only person, because you're a senior person who has access to cash, then you're going to be humbugged a lot. So I would expect many senior people will also volunteer.
But am I right in saying that the 80-20 isn't hard and fast? Now, I understand that, and this is your language, some local authority will be established in the region which would have the power on application to adjust the amount that's placed into the individual's debit card. In other words, let them get more cash. So the 80-20 is not in concrete.
Or less.
Yeah, that's right. So it will start at 80-20 for everybody. But what we're going to do is have a local authority in place. And if you're an individual, you're a responsible individual, you're doing all the right things, you're not a big drinker, you're not a big gambler, and you're sending your kids to school, and you feel a bit aggrieved from being on this card for whatever reason, you can apply to a local authority, make the case that you're doing all the right things, and that local authority can make an adjustment such that, say, only 50% of your payments go into the card instead of 80%.
So cock and bull story might work.
You never know.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick? We have
And
to
that's,
go.
that's
Alan.
in part there for two reasons. One being to give some of the local leaders some of local authority, if you like, and the second thing being to set some cultural norms also in relation to school attendance, participating in your work for the dole scheme and the like. If you're doing those things and you want a bit more cash, well, you can apply and get some.
I think it's an outstanding idea, but listen, we've got to go. But I have to ask you one question, not on this.
Well, one question before this. What's
wait.
wrong then with everyone? Are you saying the end result will be that everyone on welfare would have this card and be governed by the way the card functions?
That will be the case in the trial sites. Now, we're going to take this one step at a time, Alan.
Yeah,
we want to trial it, we want to assess it, we want to evaluate it, and then we'll make decisions from there as to where we might roll it out subsequently.
Okay, look, I've got to ask you this question. When Robert Menzies founded the Liberal Party, he said it was the party of the individual. I can't think of an issue more to do with individual conscience than gay marriage. Why is it that in the party of the individual conscience no longer matters and you won't give people a vote according to that conscience?
Well, and the ultimate form of individualism is a plebiscite. Every single individual in the country will be able to exercise their conscience on this.
Yeah, but not for at least 2 years. I mean, why not now? If that's the case, why not now? Why do you have to wait?
Richo, this is a 2,000-year-old institution. Let's take it carefully. The people do want to have a say on this, and we're going to give them that say.
The Labor Party
Every
won't.
person will be able to decide. Because,
Absolutely.
Well, I
can tell you what,
absolutely
Richo,
support the plebiscite. Don't worry, I'm not with the Labor Party on that.
Yeah, the Labor Party
But
won't
let me
give them
just
a
say
say.
this. I mean,
Labor Party will give their members a free vote. This mob won't. Well,
All right. Anyway,
we'll
Labor
have
Party
to
will give
agree to
them a free
disagree
vote for
on
a
this.
few years.
But well done on the welfare card, but let's
Yeah,
make sure we tell the world about it, Alan.
We're in heated agreement on the welfare card.
Yep.
Well done. It's an outstanding idea.
Good
Alan
stuff.
Tudge, thanks for your time.
Yep,
and
thanks.
we will be back in just a moment.
This is Richo and Jones, live on Sky News.